Well, hello and welcome back to the Crystal Clarity Podcast. My name is Sarah Thomas, and we are going to dive in today about a really important episode about the heart and the pericardium. And this is so simple, but so profound and so deep. And I know that this episode is going to be a transmission in that if you're hearing this right now, you're becoming conscious about all of this. And when you become conscious about something, that means it's changing. And maybe you're gaining awareness about this for yourself, or maybe you're gaining awareness about this for somebody who you might be walking along the path with soon as a family member or a healer. Yet, if you're here listening to my voice right now, there's a shift and an openness that is about to take place for you around the heart and the pericardium. And that sounds like shop talk. So let me just say that, in the journey of awakening, we come up to this stage where it's time for the heart to open. And when it's time for us to open our hearts, it's like a stage that we have to go through. And there are so many of us that are at this stage. There's so many of us, like, this is the journey. Like, how are we going to open now? How are we going to open our hearts? Because when we open our hearts, one of the things that happens is that we move from the known to the unknown, and we move from the mind, this place of thinking and questions and figuring it out, into this flow of synchronicity that is the heart. And we end up realizing that all the answers are around us and everything's coming to us all the time. The world becomes synchronistic, and we realize that everything's happening for us, not to us, and we relax and surrender and we love. And it's a whole different experience of life. And now so many of us struggle to open the heart. I feel like so many men are programmed as little boys, like not to feel emotions and not to open the heart. Anybody who's had trauma, anybody who's been really hurt, they have really good reasons for protecting their heart and holding on. So it's like, this is a part where it's like, how do we invite change here? How do we alchemically shift and open up? And this topic is really near and dear to me because I myself have been through such a journey with opening my heart and really becoming conscious of like the shame and vulnerability that I have felt since I was really young. So we all have these different reasons why coming up to this is just a huge phase in our awakening. And I want to talk to you today about really practical, simple way to become conscious around this and address it. And I'm just going to start by saying too that, for me to be seen and known and connect with, like, it feels like I'm standing 10 feet in front of the sun. Like, it feels so intense for me. It feels like the light is burning my eyes out. It's like I have no covering on at all. I feel like I'm naked in public. And my experience of being with people so often feels like that. Like, I'm just so exposed. It feels so vulnerable. And I know that some of you might be like, I've never even really noticed that about you. But that is how I am. And so I've had to be on this journey of like, well, how do I open, right? Like, how do I soften and open? And big part of that, and I want you guys to kind of feel into this too, is for those of you that feel quite vulnerable, like just talking to somebody or looking into somebody's eyes or letting somebody really kind of like feel your essence feels very vulnerable for you. Just stop and notice that right now. Let's just bring awareness to it. It feels like a searing open wound, it feels like we're naked. And so that level of vulnerability is exactly what I'm talking about. Now, a big part of me opening and shift around this for me is coming to understand the protection mechanisms that I have created around my heart and created around my body and created around my field, and how long those have been in place, right? And not just seeing the protection mechanisms, but really coming to a place of acceptance around them. I wanted to start talking about the pericardium. And the pericardium is the heart protector. It's the guardian for the heart. And in Chinese medicine, the pericardium is so important that it has its whole own meridian. There's only 12 primary meridians, and the pericardium has its whole own meridian. I mean, the brain doesn't even have its own meridian. The bones and bone marrow don't even have their own meridian. The uterus that creates life doesn't even have its own meridian. And they give this guardian of the heart its own meridian, and it travels right up from your finger up your arm up to your chest. So it's on your arms, it's on both arms. And the pericardium, this guardian of the heart, its entire job, its entire existence is to protect the heart. That's its whole job. It's like it exists to protect the heart. The heart is so sovereign. It's the queen of all things. It lives in the present moment. It is like an enormous radiant gift that connects us to our divine. And so, of course, it has a guardian. It's like it needs to have a guardian. But when the pericardium's whole job is to protect us, what happens is that if we feel unprotected, if we feel too fragile and too vulnerable and too open, or we feel like we've been hurt, if we feel unprotected in any way, the pericardium feels like it failed. It feels like its whole reason for being alive and the one job that it had, it failed at that. And that's the part of us that feels like we failed. And I want to translate that over to you to the word shame. The part of us that feels shame is the pericardium saying, I failed. I failed at protecting the heart. I failed at protecting you. So whatever it is that we were trying to express or be or present, and then we were not protected, or our observation or our feeling is that we were not protected, the pericardium feels like that's its whole job, and now it has failed at its whole job. That failure inside the pericardium, that feeling of failure that is shame, lives inside the pericardium. So it's to first just be like, let's have just a level of gentleness and acceptance around this beautiful being whose whole job is to protect us, whose whole job is such an important job. And when it feels like it hasn't protected us, it feels like it has not done the one job that it has to do. And that makes sense, and that's okay. It's like we get to say, oh, that's okay that I feel shame, that I've wanted to protect myself and I couldn't and I can't. This is where so much shame, and why people don't report sexual abuse and everything, because somehow we translate that we are not feeling protected because of us. It's our fault. That's the pericardium. And so all expressions of shame come from this place in us. And I feel like it's so important to be like, it makes sense. The pericardium just wanted to protect me. It's a good guardian, and it feels like it failed. So I feel this shame, and just let that be. Now, maybe you weren't hurt exactly, or that doesn't feel like you have, a big trauma or something, but maybe it's just actually part of your constitution or your life curriculum to navigate these waters that the pericardium navigates between trust and feeling closed, right? Feeling open and safe to be vulnerable, or feeling closed and shut down. And maybe that's part of your curriculum. And I often find that people who have this as part of their curriculum experience vulnerability and trust and this whole spectrum of opening up as a gift and a struggle. Like, it's what's really hard for them, but it's also what they're here to teach the rest of us how to do. And they have this deep gift with it, but it's like they're learning, and their curriculum is to like alchemize that and express that gift uniquely. When we feel shame, or when we feel like, for some reason, my whole life I felt like just looking somebody in the eyes is like standing in the face of the sun, like it just feels too vulnerable. What we often do is by the way, one of the big tells in Chinese medicine that somebody needs support for their pericardium is that they won't look you in the eye. They close their eyes when they're talking to you, or they look away a lot. They have a hard time just looking you in the eyes, because the heart is the expression of the eyes, and the pericardium is there over protecting it, or it feels too vulnerable to see, to let things out. So vulnerability is just this huge capacity. It's this huge job for the pericardium. But oftentimes when we feel like things are very vulnerable for us, what we do appropriately is we go and we hide within and we pull back and we pull our spirit within. And we kind of hide in the darker places of who we are. And that's okay too, because these are the places where we can relax, Me, myself, particularly, I need so much space. I need so much time alone, like because I can just feel relaxed and safe there inside myself. I don't have to navigate all of these outer waters with everybody around me. And so it's okay to feel like we need to relax and we need to pull in. But when we're so pulled in and we're just like kind of hiding in the corner, like buried down in these dark parts of who we are, we definitely start to get reflections from the outer world, from friends and partners and loved ones and everything. Like, come on, I want to see you. Like, let yourself be you, come out. I just want you, say you don't have to be anything special. I just want you. Like, I just want you to be not hiding. I want you to come out and meet me. And some of you are listening to this episode today because this is your partner or this is someone you love. They're just so recoiled and they're just protecting themselves. We get those expressions from the outer world. And then another thing that happens is that there's just these other costs to being pulled in within and hiding within. um, you know, the costs, there's many costs to this. And one of the things that the body will do, just one, I just want to name one for now. I might name another one, but the body will find different ways to protect itself, even when it's out in the world. And one of those is weight gain or, creating a lot of extra weight on the body because it's literally a protection. It hides the body. So they might have weight gain on the front, just like carrying a lot of weight because it's just a protection. Another thing that sometimes will happen is that, and I've seen this all so much in the treatment room, it's like this is where it's not only like stories from my own life, but it's stories from all of the patients I've seen. Sometimes people will talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and that's a way that they keep you from getting in. It's like they're just talking and talking and like kind of, and it feels like this big, like, wow, I'm just listening to all these stories. I'm not even sure what to say. But all that talking is a protection. So there's different things that we can do. And there's different ways that this comes up and that you can experience this with yourself or others. But the cost is a lot when we're inside hiding. And the thing now, you guys, this whole episode is just about, so how do we open? How do we open? The biggest thing is to really accept where we are and say, I've protected myself for a reason. My pericardium has wanted to protect my heart for a reason. My pericardium understands that's its whole job, is to protect my heart. So it's trying so hard and it's working so hard and it's taken that very seriously. And to let yourself be where you are. And the pericardium, when it's having a hit or a hurt or a trauma, or it's like the sun has been too bright in its eyes, it will experience this thing where it'll be like kind of overshut or over open. Instead of being nice and regulated like a guardian that really is a good guardian, right? It will be like way shot open or it will be way shot closed. And the person experiences feeling like way shut down, or their heart feels really closed, or they feel like they really want to hide and go within, or they feel like way too open, like the sun is way in their eyes. And they'll experience this in relationships in all kind of different ways. And yes, I'm talking about people that have different forms of social anxiety too. This falls in this. If it's just hard for you to go out and be seen. Actually, a lot of, I guess, what I'll call mental health, like the way that kind of our mind and heart kind of navigate the world. Actually, a lot of that is in the pericardium is very much involved in a lot of that, because it's how we come out and be known, and we know who we are. And then we see the rest of the world and we let the rest of the world know who we are. But if you're experiencing that, or you know someone who is, it's like they're either way shut down and their heart's quite closed and they don't know how to connect and open up, or they're way open and everything just feels too vulnerable, and that there's a fragility to that, and the vulnerability is just searing. And there's probably shame somewhere along the spectrum, because when the pericardium is like, whoa, I'm all over the place here, that feeling of feeling all over the place is like, I feel like I'm failing and I feel ashamed. So I want to show you guys just this gift This is a gift. It's like the most simple thing that you could do for yourself or for others, but it's also based in ancient wisdom and just super beautiful technological dynamics that are simple. We're going to talk about a fire triangle for this person. And a fire triangle is when we create a layout or a grid where the triangle is pointed up. Oh, quite like this picture behind me. I'm just showing a picture of a triangle behind me pointed up. So a fire triangle, here's another one. A fire triangle is anytime the triangle is pointed up, and a water triangle is anytime the triangle is pointed down. So a fire triangle is if we created a grid or layout on the body where the point is pointed up. Fire triangles are supported for fire processes, and all these processes I'm talking about with heart, pericardium opening, being seen, these are all fire processes that fall in the fire element. They're all about relationship with ourselves and others. Now, the fire triangle that we're going to create is simply pericardium 8, and it's right in the center of the palm. So for those of you that are just listening, I'm going to explain this to you. It's just right in the center of the palm. It's like if you held a crystal right in the center of your palm. Those of you that are watching, you can see what I'm doing. I'm just holding my hands up and I'm bending my middle finger down into my palm. Not my ring finger, but my middle finger down into my palm. When you bend your middle finger down into your palm, it lands right on pericardium 8. Okay? And this is the pericardium meridian, and it just points back to itself at pericardium 8. This point is so important. It's a magic wand. It's an activation. I'm trying to keep to the shorter episodes for you guys, so I'm not even, but we emanate so much energy from this point in our palm. It's a portal. We can take so much energy in at this point in our palm. It's such an activation, in or out. And at pericardium 8, you're getting this opportunity to bring this, it's almost like the feeling of weariness, like the feeling of like, wow, this has been quite a journey, vulnerability and protecting myself and trying to move into trust and openness. The feeling of, just like almost an honoring of the picture, like an honoring that this has been happening. And when you link these points on the hands with the person laying down, and then you put a crystal right over the chest, right over the heart and pericardium, you end up with this fire triangle, because in their hands, they've got the crystal, and then up at their chest, they've got the crystal. So they have this fire triangle here, pointed up if they're laying down. And that triangle from the palms of the hands up to the heart creates an energy circuit for the pericardium, literally on the meridian at one of the most absolute powerful points on the body, the whole body, let alone the pericardium meridian. P8 is a very important point. And then you're coming up to the heart with that fire triangle. And the crystal that I want to use here is rose quartz, because I want to use a quartz because I want to regulate everything that's happening, and I want to harmonize everything that's happening, and I want a gentle, regulating, harmonizing, ordering approach to what's happening for the pericardium. This is a treatment for your heart protector. It's for the guardian inside of you. And the most important thing is that we're not forcing the pericardium to open. We're not saying you have to open, you have to change. We're not saying you have to change at all. That's the thing, just letting it be. This whole treatment is to say, let's just see this. Let's just become conscious of the way that I have protected myself and the journey this has been, and let them have that circuit running with the rose quartz that's going to regulate and harmonize the pericardium. Fire triangles support fire. And now I want to just share one more technique about this is when you put a rose quartz on pericardium 8, practice, see if you can experiment with just having it in such a way that they don't have to grasp their hand around it. They don't have to hold it, but it's just sitting in their hand. And so you're going to use a piece of medical tape, or you're going to use a piece of stretchy sports gauze to wrap it around, because I want their hand to be completely relaxed and somewhat open. I don't want their hand to have to use any muscles to hold this crystal. I want their hand to be completely in its natural state. And this crystal right here on pericardium 8, just supporting, holding, regulating. Because when, the hands represent trust in a lot of ways. And that's why this pericardium energy runs up into here, that what we can hold on to is what we can trust. And that is something that we've found, as we study the body, is when we hold on to something, it's almost like there's a symbology there that translates into our energetics, that what we can hold on to, we can trust. But we don't want to be holding on hard, because that's that feeling of like, I have to protect myself. And that becomes that rigidity of the closed heart, right? The hands themselves, just like the eyes, are like an expression of the heart. So I want the person's hands to just be relaxed. I want you to use some kind of tape or medical gauze to just get that rose quartz to just be held right in the hands, and then this circuit here coming up to the heart. And you can put it right over the center of the chest, okay? For those of you that know acupuncture points, Ren 17 is perfect, but it's just right in the center of the chest, up at the level of the heart. And so you let this circuit run for a little bit, and I want you to do this with yourself, or if you're working with someone else, just tell the person, this is just an honoring of how much you have protected yourself. This is just an honoring of that you did it for a reason. You've done it for a reason. The world might feel searingly vulnerable to you, or you've been hurt, right? It's like an honoring of the journey that you've been protecting yourself. And it's an honoring of the possibility of opening to trust again. It's just an honoring of the potential of opening and trusting again. But we're not pushing to open and trust. We're not saying you have to change. We're just saying it all makes sense what you've been doing, And we love you, pericardium. We love you, guardian. You have such an incredible, important job, and you've done it perfect up to this point for what the heart has needed. You might find that if you do this treatment with yourself or someone a few times, there's a shift that happens, a gentle shift that happens, where something starts to change around this and something starts to open. And I find this a perfect fire triangle to do if the person has already been having some awareness about the ways that they protect themselves and vulnerability that they feel, because it will help integrate. It's a very integrative pattern. Some of the ways that they've been becoming conscious of that will help integrate it into the body and the meridian system. Or if they're not really conscious of it, like you're kind of like, wow, there's a lot, you're feeling all this, and you can give this to them as a way to honor and reflect the ways that they've protected themselves, honor and reflect the vulnerability that they felt, or even the shame that they have felt, and just be there with it. It's like the rose quartz comes in just to be there with it. It's one of the most gentle and powerful stones that there is. I'm going to give you one more stone for this, just to throw it in there as because I almost can't even do this without saying it, but pink kunzite is one of the most quintessential stones for the pericardium. It's a beautiful stone for the pericardium. For some of you, it's going to feel perfect and right on for this, and rose quartz is too. It's just perfect and right on. It's the perfect way to say, I'm not pushing you to do anything at all. I'm not forcing you to change, but we're looking at and honoring the life of the pericardium, the guardian of the heart. So thank you all for listening to this episode and being present, and I am excited that you have a little bit of transformative fire triangle stone medicine and crystal healing to give, to bring these awarenesses all the way through the meridian system, the physical body, and into the soul, like stones love to do. So all right, y'all, I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.